Well, welcome everybody. We have some folks coming on in to the Zoom here. I'll just be admitting them as we get started. Appreciative of everyone being here today. Have probably a smaller crew, which is great. Always excited to get involved in this initiative and any chance we can to share, about the esports ecosystem in Wisconsin. So as we continue to let folks in, I'll just do a brief introduction of who I am, and hopefully, although I know a few folks probably won't be on screen, which is no worries, please feel free to use the chat just to be able to communicate. Obviously, use your microphones. This isn't a, I would say, presentation meant to be just, hey, you guys listen to what I have to say. This is meant to be something where we can intersect and interact. If you're here, then likely you have questions about gaming and esports, which is awesome. I hope to answer those questions if you have them. And also, we've got a little presentation. Who doesn't love presentations? To talk about things. But as I say, I think it's most beneficial when it's interactive. So if you're interested, let's say, do an introduction in the chat, say, hey, who you are, what you're here for, kind of what you're interested in. That always helps me just be able to give kind of a more concise answer to some things versus just spewing information at you. But yeah, so for who I am, my name is Brandon Chalker. I am the founder of the Milwaukee Esports Alliance. We're coming up here on our third year as an organization, which is pretty exciting. That'll be in November. So pretty cool space, the gaming space in Wisconsin and esports. Couldn't have told you when we started that it was going to be this meteoric and this cool, but it's been kind of a fun story ever since we've gotten started. So if you guys like, I guess I'll pause for a second. Anyone want to just introduce themselves and or put something in the chat? Because like I said, I don't want to just spew PowerPoint information at everyone. Hey, Dion.
Hey, yeah, I can introduce myself. So my name is Dion Cannon. I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I'm also a constituent liaison for Congresswoman Gwen Moore's office.
Cool.
I'm here for dual, one to encourage youth to get involved with STEM, and I was like, this is a good pathway to do that. And personally, I'm a huge esports fan, so just personally, I just also want to get involved, but I'm here for both of those reasons.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for being here. Excited to meet you. Very familiar with Gwen. She was a keynote speaker at my graduation, and obviously I'm very familiar with her just overall. She does a lot for our community, so very excited to have you here and representing her office. That's awesome. Very cool. Robert, nice to meet you as well. Creative entrepreneur at the Hub Collective, building experiences, building virtual experience, XR experiences. That's exciting. Definitely would check that out. Appreciate you being here. Virtual reality, user experience, esports are all kind of intertwined, which is very cool. So appreciate that. What's up, Alexis? EA Sports Hub. Interesting. Yeah, there is I would say I can comment on that initially if I'm probably understanding that correctly. There is actually well, right now in Madison, Respawn Gaming just opened up a satellite, if you will, or an office in Madison for game development, which is pretty exciting. So if that's probably what you might have been thinking of, they just opened up their shop in Madison probably earlier this year, and they do work with Apex and EA Sports. So that might be it. There's other rumblings. That's probably all I've heard at this point. But that's a very cool thing. We're grateful to have them in Wisconsin. Very cool, growing game development ecosystem in Madison. So very cool there. And David Skurlock, In Your Face Learning VR. Great to see you. You have such a cool initiative that you work on. If you haven't guys met David, check out his organization, In Your Face Learning. They do incredibly cool stuff, and David's an incredible community partner as well. So, what's up, Mitch? Great to meet you. Thanks for being here. Data analytics and big sports fan, learning about esports. Cool. We're gonna hash it out. We're gonna talk a little bit about the esports ecosystem. My goal is, like I said, we've got a little presentation that I think can be helpful, just in terms of seeing, hey, here's what's happening in the state. I'm going to start. I'll share my screen just with kind of giving you all sort of a high level overview of esports. Sometimes that isn't always well known, I would say, and so I kind of try to hopefully give a little perspective on that. So just let me know if for some reason you're not seeing the screen. I mean, by this point with the Zoom history, we're 3 years in. I'm pretty confident that what's on your screen right now is today's outline. But if for some reason you don't see it, let me know, and I'll make sure that we get it up there for you. As I say, we're going to be talking about what is esports, industry growth estimates, talk a little bit about what's going on specifically in Wisconsin, and then I'll share a little bit more kind of about what our organization does. So the way that I like to put it, and like I said, we came into this 3 years ago knowing nothing. And so not to say that we are the subject matter expertises, however, do try to present at least the information in a way that is consumable, that hopefully you can walk away saying, I know a little bit more about how this niche works and what it is at a high level. So if you think of esports, a differentiation between people just playing video games, these are people that play video games competitively. So play for prize pool, play in leagues, pay on their college teams. These are people that are going to be playing as a competitive sport, maybe in replacement or in addition to some of the traditional sports. Obviously, gamers' ages range all over the spectrum. So it's not to say that it's all in the scholastic and collegiate realm, but that is a big part of the ecosystem. As you can see, typically played on a PC, mobile, or console device. And then if you're familiar with the types of games there are, you've got first-person shooters, you've got multiplayer online battle arenas, a lot of different things that way, or trying to recreate sort of a construction of physical sports in something like a Rocket League or otherwise. It isn't just games anymore. I think sometimes that can be a misconception is that people are kind of just playing in their basements, and it's just sort of like a passing recreational interest. It's a big business, and so they think by last year and this year that it's anticipated to reach about $1 billion in revenue, which is very exciting, with a projection to hit about 3.5 by 2025. So it's for real, and it's growing, which is a very cool part of the equation. In terms of the revenue that you'd hear, or the numbers you'd hear, I just listed a few of the ways that some of that money flows today. Similar to what you might find in traditional sports, in that there's media rights, live event tickets, merchandise. You can buy things in the games, winning tournaments, right? But I think it's important to know that, like, at this point right now, about 70% of the revenue in esports comes from sponsorships and advertising. And I'll say that it's honestly a little bit of an issue, just because obviously that can be so volatile year in and year out. It's not always guaranteed. So it's something that has been a positive in terms of cash flow for the industry, but it does leave kind of a potential, if you're doing a SWOT analysis, a weakness in sort of the future growth, because you need to find some more reoccurring revenue base. So just helpful to know this is kind of where the revenue, when you hear about esports, is coming from. And I should mention, please raise hands, stop me at any time to ask questions. Again, I hate when I just like talk on, but I get it. We all don't know each other yet. So it's helpful sometimes to just talk for a little bit, but please interject at any time with questions about these topics. In terms of where people are coming from, I think that's also kind of an interesting dynamic. You see some of this data on the screen, but I think in general, Asia Pacific, Europe, there I would call it in a more mature or advanced phase of their gaming ecosystem. Even Saudi Arabia has a esports league now. So you're starting to see, North America, where we are, the United States, really start to grow and catch on. But I would call us lagging in terms of where the rest of the world has gotten to from a competitive esports perspective. There should be, I think, in 2028, esports as an Olympic sport, right? So we're in North America. We're good on the revenue side. I think I saw a report today. If you were to say that 300 million in esports revenue in North America, you might say that that's the most in the world, but where we would have 100 million gamers over in Asia Pacific or in Europe, they might have 400 million. So it's kind of an interesting dynamic that we do have a good amount of the chunk of revenue in gaming, but in terms of player population and total people participating, Europe and Asia Pacific have us kind of beat in that regard. If you think of the future, right? So as I mentioned, a lot of the stuff right now is played on console, PC, and then a little bit on mobile. There's a pretty good reality that a lot of this will move into more of the PC or mobile space, which will be, it'll have its challenges, but I think it'll also reduce barriers to entry in terms of cost point and people being able to participate. So who knows when or how that will happen? It'll obviously depend a lot on devices and internet access and a lot of those types of things. But it's interesting to kind of see that where this may go could be into the virtual reality, into the mobile, and may always not be on PC and console, which candidly are pretty price prohibitive and structurally difficult to facilitate. Something that usually bodes well for the future, if you look at a generational breakdown, it's some interesting data points. I don't think I have them all here, but 98% of people under 18 play a video game in some way or shape or form. The average age of a gamer in the United States is 31, right? So there's some diverse, pieces of the gaming equation. But one thing that is clear is that for Gen Z and kind of what will likely be beyond them, esports can be considered in many ways the sort of sport of choice. If you look at the data and analytics on traditional sports, whether it's football, baseball, basketball, you name it, viewership is declining compared to maybe some of the peaks for those industries. And so a lot of what that's being replaced with is esports, which is pretty cool. This was just a New York Times article that came out not too long ago that I thought was sort of indicative of sort of this change that we're seeing. I thought it was pretty cool, right? So step aside LeBron and make way for Banjo and Kazooie. And I'm a retro gaming enthusiast, as you can see with my old school arcades. So that really resonated with me. The other thing that I think is important to note is that not just the games themselves, but the industry that's growing is really an important part of this equation. So this was just a graph that I really enjoyed. It talks about esports related professions, and you see the kind of wheel go out from there into all of the different roles that would be required or needed in the industry. And so I've had a chance to connect with a number of individuals talking about, hey, I'd like to figure out what this career might mean to me, or what can I do in this industry where I can have a career in it, because gaming is a very attractive career. And so these would just be some of the ones that I would put out there that I think are helpful to kind of understand. And I would say not totally atypical from what you might see in a traditional sports environment, right? Because a lot of the ground level things are very similar in terms of you need to have production, you need to have streaming, you need to have marketing, you need to have, all of those different components. So a lot of those are listed out there. I just think it makes it very exciting to think about that this is the way that esports is developing, not only just as the games that are being played, but the industry behind it. I'll stop there quickly. Just any questions or anything that I just rambled through that might have piqued someone's interest, or they want to have just a little bit of dialogue on? Because I'll keep rambling. Cool. So up on your screen, and I'll just talk a little bit about the Wisconsin esports ecosystem and maybe some of the role that we play in it. But again, the easiest way that I have found to describe it, and I know that this is small, if you go to our website, you can see it much larger, but each year we do a state of Wisconsin esports. And the way that we break it down at the top there's youth initiatives. So you have what you could look at as the middle school ecosystem. So organizations like XP League are in there right now. We have an XP League in Madison. We have an XP League in Milwaukee. They are a franchise opportunity, but it's a really great opportunity for middle school kids to be able to play and compete in competitive gaming. If you go up into the scholastic realm, so this would be high school, K through 12, essentially. We have about 150 high schools now that are competing in some form or fashion in esports. We are really benefited by having a local nonprofit called the Wisconsin High School Esports Association that runs this league for free. It is a not-for-profit, and so it provides access to esports at no cost, which is an incredible, incredible benefit that we have. And it's one of the stronger of its nature in the country. So we have a very strong and growing scholastic ecosystem. On the collegiate side, so as of this recording, we have 27 Wisconsin universities that have an esports team or program. We will have 31 probably by the end of this year. A number are in production or kind of getting ramped up and started. So collegiate is a really exciting ecosystem for esports. A lot of universities are seeing it as a way to engage their students, seeing it as a way to get students on campus. And so it's just a very cool time for that space. And in Wisconsin in particular, we've had just an incredibly growing and burgeoning ecosystem on the collegiate side. If you go past that, on the professional side, we are super fortunate. We have the Milwaukee Bucks and Bucks Gaming, which is an NBA 2K affiliate. And so it's the only pro entity in the state, located here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It's a very cool organization. Just 2 years ago, they won one of the NBA championships for their league and ended up earning $500,000, which is a little bit of the example of the type of revenue that can be gained in esports. So that's a very cool thing we have here. And then the others are just, there are a number of venues around the state, and there are more venues popping up all the time, which is exciting. And then leagues as well. So one of the subsidiaries of the Milwaukee Esports Alliance is the Wisconsin Collegiate Rocket League. So this is a local league that allows universities around the state to participate against each other and then have a championship at the end of the year in person. And that's important to note because in the collegiate space, there's basically two major conferences in the country, East and West Coast. And so the Midwest is still kind of finding its footing. So we're grateful to be a part of helping our local scene be able to compete and be able to play against one another in person when that time allows. There's some data there just on sort of the video game industry jobs in Wisconsin. A lot of that is, I would say, generated by our game development space and less our esports space. So difference being there, publishers, game developers, these are the people that make the games, distribute the games, and then get the revenue and people buy the games. Esports is an industry based on people who are playing the games competitively, right? So we have a very strong game development ecosystem in Wisconsin as well, which is super powerful. And if you combine the two, it's one of the reasons we feel very bullish and excited about how gaming and esports will continue to look in the state. So some fun things there. It lists out some popular titles. A lot of this is based on our collegiate and high school data. So Smash Bros, Rocket League, Fortnite, Valorant, League of Legends, names you would know if you follow the space at all. And then, just some of the things that we've done. So that's sort of our Wisconsin esports space. And as I say, it's been growing meteorically year over year. We had, I think, 20 universities last year. We'll be at 31 at the end of this year. Just as recently as 3 or 4 years ago, the high school space had maybe 50 to 60 teams, and now they're like set over around 120 to 150 competing. And so you see a lot of the growth in that space, and we're really excited about where that sort of will lead us into the future. Any questions on that? What's up, Dion?
Yeah, so I actually have a quick question, and maybe you'll get into this in the slides as well. But uh, what do you think supporters of esports, or what can we do to assist the growth of it, I would say.
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think knowing how you mentioned, like there would be on the Gwen Moore side, right? So we're actually doing a lot of, I would say, legislative dialogue with state senators and congressmen and women to just evangelize the opportunities that maybe other states have seen in terms of tax credits or just supporting sort of this industry. There's actually a game development bill that's hoping to be passed this fall that's being worked on by the ESA. So I know they just went to Capitol Hill maybe this last week to have some dialogue there. We have had a grant that we've been looking for to boost scholastic esports for a couple of years, and we weren't able to find bipartisan sort of support. We were able to get support from Kaylin Haywood and some of the other folks you might be familiar with, and Tip McGuire. So I would say that on that side, just given where you mentioned and whom you're affiliated with, we are working to incorporate esports into our state government and sort of the support from the state. That's what it's going to take to really accelerate us to the next level nationally. There's got to be public-private partnership, and just as I mentioned, because mostly some of the right now financial resource side of things, it's not a built-out ecosystem. It's still evolving, and so there's going to be some of that need. But in general, I think outside of that, outside of a very complicated and robust issue around state legislation and all of those topics, which are worth mentioning. I think just in the support in general, it's attend events, learn more, right? And I'll speak to some of what the Alliance does, but I think our mission is to put out information that people can consume and get involved at a pace that makes sense for them. And then once I think people understand what is available, we've got an event called the Wisconsin Esports Summit where people can go and network and connect and start to build and work with one another. That's a way to support. We just had the state's largest fighting game tournament in Milwaukee at the Baird Center. 515 people from 10 different states came to Milwaukee to compete in Smash Bros. And games like Mortal Kombat, Tekken, et cetera, which is FGC, it's called. So I think it's just showing up, right? Showing up, meeting people, spending time in the space. Those are ways today that I think are easily accessible pathways to meeting people. And for our part, and I'll share a little bit about the Alliance, we're here to just make sure people get connected to wherever they want to go. If they're looking for a job, if they're looking to just play, right? Like if they're looking to, find a career in this space, like we're here to hopefully be able to help steward some of that. So that's usually what I'll say in terms of support, is just trying to figure out how to, find your own personal space, and we'll get you there. Or if you are connected to brands, businesses, legislation, as you are in this case, it's just really communicating with those individuals to hopefully help them feel comfortable with it. Because a lot is overcoming a stigma. There's a lot of, confusion around the space that esports and competitive gaming occupies. Many people might look at it and say, oh, is it taking away from academics? Is it, a waste of time versus being outside? And so I think a lot of the support comes from having open and honest dialogue around what it is and what it isn't. And so a lot of times that, can be a benefit as well. I've kind of gone on for a while. Anything helpful there? Any kind of follow-up questions on that? Thank you for asking that question.
No, everything is helpful, and we should touch base so I can talk about the legislative side. So,
Mhm.
and offline.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's, we understand it's a complex time for anything legislative. And I'm excited because people have been very open to the conversation. And what's actually been very exciting is starting to combine forces with people who are working on the creative economy side of things. I just had a really fascinating conversation with a gentleman here who runs Imagine Milwaukee, talking about how, they're not necessarily just saying, oh, it's like arts and music anymore. They're calling it, creative economy. And within the creative economy includes games, includes music, includes, cinema, etc. That's a very exciting proposition as well. So I think this space works really well with some of those other places, and people are realizing they're more combined than maybe you'd expect. And also they're incredibly diverse, incredibly accessible, right? Like, one of the exciting parts about esports is anyone can literally, get involved, and many can find pro or, incredible success that previously wouldn't have had access to it. And I always use the scenario like, if you're 6'4", 240 pounds, and you run a 4.440, you've got a shot at the NFL. But if you're 5'6", 110, you don't. That's just the reality. But there's no barrier to you becoming an esports champion. We have so many different types and individuals who compete and play in esports. It's a really exciting thing. So yeah, that's how I would say to the question on support is just, finding a place to get involved, staying in touch. And then what we try to do, and I've mentioned it on, the slide here, is we try to take you to where you want to go. That's our goal. So I mentioned on here, our goal is to accelerate the growth of esports throughout the region. Primarily that's Southern Wisconsin, so Madison, Milwaukee, kind of this area, but we are an institution that serves the rest of the state. So we do have the opportunity to work, as I mentioned, with all 31 universities, and we work with groups from, all over, literally from west, north, south, and east, which is very cool. We are also partnered with groups like the MMAC, Visit Milwaukee, Wisconsin Center District, other tourism and convention bureau groups around the state to really tell a national story. And as I mentioned, we've got a cool game development space, and we've got a really cool esports space. And so we're continuing to try to help evangelize around the country to what people are doing. Here's just some more.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. There's just some more stuff on us. You can read through it, but as I mentioned, legislation. We have a Discord, which is a great place if you're a gamer or involved in the gaming space to just join if you're familiar with Discord and start to connect with people. So I would say, go there, check that out as time allows. We've got great directory of all of those places that I've mentioned, and then we are involved, I would say, recently. So as we said, we got the Wisconsin Esports Summit coming up here in March. And that'll be our third year of that. We had a UWM Panther Arena, had about 500 people last year, which is a very cool time. It's just a chance to really, I would call it, meet the esports leaders throughout Wisconsin that are kind of leading the charge, from coaches, directors, C-suite for endemic and non-endemic groups. So it's a fun little event. And then we will be doing Cream City Convergence again this year. So this is a partnership between us, the Milwaukee Bucks, and several what are called TOs, so tournament organizers in the Madison and Milwaukee area. And we put on the state's largest FGC and Smash tournament. So that was a really good event this year, and we'll be looking to grow that and build it into the future. I've just listed on here some partners, right? So I said the Bucks, Palermo's, MGC, Sports Milwaukee, a number of those groups that we work with. And if you do want to get involved, we put the Discord link in there. And then obviously on social is a great place to connect. I'm really a big fan of our monthly newsletter. As I say, I think we try to put out content and information as frequently as possible so that people can engage with it as makes sense for them. But our goal is that you may have a conversation today or hear this conversation today, and it may spark some interest, and then we can follow up afterwards and continue that dialogue, right? Because you'll have busy days. You have other things going on in your life. Esports isn't always going to be at the top of your radar or priority, but it is for us. And so we want to make sure that we can be there alongside you to be able to get, hopefully, the continued acceleration and growth of it. So stop sharing my screen here. So if you can see faces and do on, I saw some comments in there. That's the presentation, folks. I know it's only been 25 minutes. I don't want to, cut you short on whatever. Might have been an hour or otherwise. But what else has come to mind, or what else is on the brain around esports, maybe in Wisconsin, that I could ask? Alexis, what's up?
I actually found what I was going to ask.
Oh, well, then I can't be of too much help, or you can still ask it if you want. What was the topic?
But it's the EA Sports. It's for Tech. That's what I was looking for. They have a new facility that's been added there, correct?
Sorry, say it one more time. Seems like there might be some lag. That's what I'm guessing. We'll give it 1 sec to see if it comes through. I'll apologize, Alexis. It's coming through super fast, and then it's like stopping. But if you want to throw it in the chat, EA Sports Facility, Waukesha Tech Facility, WCTC, or the I was gonna say WCTC just opened up their new lab, which is very cool. They made a significant investment into that space, so we're super excited for them, and we're working with them on putting some stuff in, which is very cool. Dion, I'm going to respond to your message real quick and then just drop in the notes. So let me see how that goes. Hopefully that's not too jumbled. The chat can be a little weird. But yeah, no, thank you, Alexis, for mentioning that. The new facility, they spent about $700,000 on that facility. Definitely has some top of the line, state of the art stuff, which is very cool. And so, yeah, it's we're excited about what's going on at WCTC and others. What else? What else is on the brain? I don't know. Sorry, Dion. Did that message go? Okay, it looks like it might have. Yeah, so
it went through.
Cool. Yeah. So like I said, the Discord's a great place to just kind of get involved. You can kind of see what's going on there. That's my email is in there as well. Like I said, the newsletter is a great place. Hey, what's up, Quentin? Great to see you here. I'll actually have this recording available. So I can share the slides as well as I'll probably just get a link to the recording made so I can send you the link in case you really wanted to regale yourself with a half an hour of our incredible dialogue so far. Thanks for being here. Robert, I know it looked like you had mentioned some information on the Kenosha facility. I know I've had dialogue on, at least had some contact with a group down there that was a part of Diane Hendricks's shop that I know had been exploring the potential of facilities down in that neck of the woods. So I'm not sure if that's the one you're referring to. I will say, depending on if that was, one of the interesting parts about this business is that we hope, and honestly, through doing things like today, we hope to evangelize and get as many feelers out there as possible to people who may be considering or thinking about getting into esports. And the reason for that is because there's a lot of people who are jumping in quickly to the space, and oftentimes without probably having had the chance to go through the due diligence of like what's on the other side of that rainbow. And this is not just a Wisconsin thing, this is a national thing. There's an incredible amount of VC funding going into the esports and gaming space. And so while there's a lot of cash flying around, there's also now numerous amounts of stories where people have built facilities, spent millions of dollars, and now they're hosting church services or small events because their ecosystem wasn't ready, right? And so that's one of the things that we try to get out in front of. And if you guys know of people that are entertaining ideas or thinking about jumping into esports and we haven't had a chance to connect with them, I always say let's just have a 10-minute conversation just to try to bring people up to speed on what's really probably achievable or attainable in the esports space. Because really we've worked diligently for 3 years to build those events I showed you. Those have been the result of a lot of hard work and a lot of kind of, I would call it grind, not to use that cliche word. But this isn't, if there's one thing esports is not today, it is not if you build it, they will come. The gaming community is very tight knit. And there's only a few games that honestly people will pay to go play at a place on site versus playing in an online league or otherwise. So not sure if the Kenosha facility was that, Robert, if that was what you're referring to, or it's part of other things. But I can say honestly, in the last 3 months, I've gotten 6 calls from people around the state saying, "Hey, I just bought a 3,500 square foot building. I spent 75,000 on equipment, and I'm going to open up this facility." None of those have actually happened yet, so I don't know if they're still in development or if they just haven't gone through. But when those messages have come through, I've always said, "Hey, let's have a conversation about what your interests are," because it just isn't an automatic. So that's been part of the unique maturation of this industry as well. A lot of interested parties, but there's a lot of nuance to growing it. And I can say we're probably the only esports LLC in the state. We've got about 70 game developers in the state that are LLC. I mentioned in that state board. So it's not as mature and the economics are not as tight. But that's why I think it's helpful to have these conversations, because there are more players than ever. So how do you figure out how to create and grow that industry right here in good old Wisconsin? Any other questions? Any other thoughts as we sit here today, 12:31? If not, as mentioned, I'll try to get this recording put into a little link, and I think I should have everyone's email from registration. So thank you for doing that. I would love to connect with each of you, whoever has questions individually. That's what we're here for. We're here to answer questions and be a resource. So if we can do that and continue to have dialogue, please count us as being in your corner to have that conversation. Appreciate you all being here, and hopefully we'll touch base again soon. Have a great rest of your day.